Hey again, travel bosses. I'm excited to bring you this week's sponsor, TripStreak, the smarter travel search. What I love about TripStreak is the ability to set your personal preferences to either have or avoid red-eye flights or have things like completely lie flat seats. So the next time you need to book a flight, check out tripstreak.com/travel-like-a-boss.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, the radio show all about traveling like a boss by being your own boss. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have built their own online businesses. If you would like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit travellikeabosspodcast.com for instant access. And here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey everyone, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 157 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here with Devany Rendezvous, is it?
Resendiz.
So, where are we, Devany?
That is a very good question. We are at a beautiful beach resort in the Komodo Islands in Indonesia.
So, Devany is originally from San Diego and has been traveling with her fiance, Alex, aka Frenchie, for the last 14 months.
Yes.
And we met yesterday on a dive boat here in Komodo. Yeah.
Beautiful Komodo.
So the reason why I wanted to have you on is every week I have on a different kind of traveler guest, and most of them are what you would call like a digital nomad, someone who's working while traveling.
Yes.
But it's really cool to see and kind of hear from someone who has done like more the traditional route, which is you worked as a bar manager for how long to save up for this trip?
8 years.
That's a long time, right?
Yeah. Well, 8 years in the same place. It's been about probably 12 overall.
That's crazy. Okay. But San Diego is a beautiful place.
It is. People always ask me why I even left San Diego to travel, because it is in itself a travel destination. And I always kind of, for me, I love San Diego. I'm really excited to go back, and I find there's so much stuff to do there. We have the ocean, there's snowboarding, there's boating, we have a great party scene. But I love going to see different cultures, so it's more about traveling to other obscure destinations, doing more diving, and seeing the people that I meet as well as the locals that you meet along travel.
I know exactly what you mean. And kind of regarding the first part, literally 2 minutes ago, those two French girls asked where I was from, and I said California, and they said, "Oh, you don't even need a vacation." And it's funny because they're from France, which to an American, we think of their place, not needing a vacation. We're like,
true.
you live in France. That's amazing. Not only do you have Paris, but you have like the backcountry, you have like the Alps, you have all these amazing things, and you have all of Europe.
True.
So I think it's pretty safe to say that like wherever you're from, you want to see something else.
That's true. Well, I think it's that way with people that enjoy traveling. There are plenty of people that love things to remain exactly as they are all the time. For people you meet that like to travel, they want to see a bit of everything, and they want the winter, they want the summer, they want everything. I think that's how I am. Always moving, loving it all.
I think the biggest downside of California, it's not bad. I think it's definitely an upside for most people, but downside for me is you don't have any seasons.
Yes, that is a huge downside for me.
And to other people, they're like, that's great. It's warm all year round.
Yeah.
But it's a downside because, first off, it gets a bit mundane, I guess. And I feel like years can pass without really feeling anything changes.
That's very true. I also think, originally I am from Boston, but I moved to San Diego 15 years ago. So when I visit friends from Boston, they'll tell me ahead of time, you need to let us know your vacation plans by April for the summer, because we have every single weekend booked. We have only 14 weekends of summer, 14 weekends of good weather, and it's all pre-planned. And one thing that's very good about when you have seasons and you only have 14 weeks of vacation, it makes them do things. In San Diego, I myself sometimes am a flake, as well as everyone I know will say, let's do it. Oh, tomorrow becomes tomorrow, because every day is beautiful. You can do it every day.
When I lived in LA, even though it was, I was technically probably only like 20 miles from the beach, but it takes an hour to get there.
Yeah.
And I realized that none of us ever went to the beach. We would go maybe like 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, we don't need to live this close to the beach if we're never going to go anyways.
Yeah.
There are people that live in middle America or other places that go to nice beaches way more often than we do, even though we're, 20 miles away.
True. Because I was very lucky the last few years. I've lived only maybe half a block to the ocean, so I'd get to see the sunset every day. But prior to that, I lived only 20 minutes from the ocean, and I realized 2 months had gone by and I had not seen the beach. I was 20 minutes. It's nothing. That's shorter than most people's commute. So.
Yeah, and we just kind of get used to it. And I think you're right when you say we think, oh, we can go next time, we can go tomorrow, we can go anytime. So we just we don't go anytime. And as much as it's annoying to have these short visas in all these countries we visit,
yes,
it forces us to make the most of it.
That is true.
And I think that's almost kind of a blessing in disguise. And I think that is why most countries do relatively short visas, is because they want to force people to do as much as they can and see as much as they can in that 30 or 60 days.
True. That's a good point. I never really thought of it that way. But in all of our very short visas is when we've done the most, seen the most of the country, now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and then if you have, let's say you want to come back, you can go make a visa run, but then when you come back, you end up spending not only, money on transport, airport taxes, you'll probably get a hotel instead of getting a long-term lease. Mm-hmm. You'll spend money kind of like seeing other places or other things. So I think for the economy or for like a tourism point of view, I think they are smart to have 30 or 60 day visas. I think though that with kind of the rise of people who are more location dependent and slower travelers now, I think that they should always have 60 days, maybe even 90 days, versus trying to get people in and out in 30, which is stupid.
I agree with you. Most people that I've known that have worked while traveling are either doing one of two options. They're either working locally for basically pennies, or they're doing things like working on the internet, and that means that they're going to need to stay in one place for a longer period of time, and they're going to be working, so they're going to be exploring the area at a slower pace, so more days would be significantly beneficial for them.
But I also do think that it's not unfair for them to force us to travel every 90 days, because I think every 90 days people should take a break and take vacation anyways.
Every 90 days, a vacation from vacation. Yeah, that makes a good point. I have a close friend from Honduras, and she has what I would consider the ultimate work-life fantasy. She owns a bar with two other friends. So 3 owners, and they all work 2 months off on 1 month off. So she works 2 months, and then she vacations for 30 days, and then comes back 2 months and vacations for 30 days. And she's been doing this for over 10 years now. I think
nice.
That's
because a month is a great amount of time, because it's not like a 2-week vacation where you probably don't want to fly to Asia and back.
Right.
In a month you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know where she's been?
Oh my gosh. She has literally been all over the world, and almost every trip she takes is completely different from the time before. I know recently she did 1 month in Ireland over the past year, 1 month in the Galapagos Islands. She was in Taiwan for a month, and that's just in the last year, 3 of her vacations.
So Galapagos is one of the, I don't want to say the last, because I keep adding more places as I travel. And I think that's the hardest thing about travel. The reason why you can't really stop ever.
Yes.
Is you can make a list of places you want to go, but every place you go, that list gets longer because you meet other people who traveled.
Absolutely true. Especially for me, when I first started traveling, it was that poor 21, 22-year-old that would eat cans of tuna and meet random strangers and sleep on their couch so that I had a place. And as the years have gone by, I always thought, eventually I'm going to stop that. I'm going to get the career job. I'm going to buy the house. After every big trip, I've said that's the last. I'm going to, essentially get my stuff together, as people say, and move on. And then, nope, never going to happen. It just makes me too happy to travel. I just can't imagine really stopping. Every time I meet someone new, I do add at least 5 more places to the list. I do think the Galapagos are the absolute pinnacle. It's like the ultimate dream for diving for me. I haven't been either. And I think part of me wants to save it for the end because I have such high hopes. I want to see, the hammerhead sharks all swimming above me. I want to see was it the lizard they have, the swimming iguanas? I think it's the ultimate fantasy for any diver.
Yeah, me as well. So Galapagos is like the top pinnacle for me to go diving in. Super expensive and it's hard to get to. It's an island off of Ecuador, I guess. Yeah. That's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
It's off of Ecuador, but it's not really off anything.
Yeah, it's like the middle of the ocean. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know, it's where Charles Darwin went to do all of his research.
Yes.
Theory of evolution was born there.
That's true.
It's not a theory. Evolution was born there. Anyone listening to this, evolution is real. Okay, so one place I've added to my list, being here in Komodo, which I think I might have heard the name before, but I had zero desire to go, but now it's on my list, is Raja Ampat.
Yes. I didn't know anything about it myself until this trip, but my fiance and I have already added it and we're going in 2 weeks because we heard such amazing things about it. We thought, we're already here, we're in Indonesia, we might as well go. We don't want to, I would love to come back to Indonesia, but this one's happening now.
I like it. All right. I'm just going to save it for future year.
Yes.
So Raja Ampat, if you guys never heard of it, don't worry. I think most people haven't.
Yeah.
It's far east Indonesia, almost to Papua New Guinea.
Yes. It's actually it's actually on New Guinea, but on the very tip of New Guinea, and it's on the Indonesian side.
Okay. And the way I heard about it was when I was researching best dive sites in Komodo or, where should I dive in Komodo? Everybody said Komodo's great, but Raja Ampat is better.
Yes.
And that they could only choose one or the other, they would choose Raja Ampat.
Yes. Well, I'll have to get back to you on whether it's better now that I've dove in Komodo. It's certainly much, much more expensive than Komodo. So I hope that it lives up to that.
But I think at this level of diving, it's literally like comparing what's better, the Ferrari or the Lamborghini.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Because Komodo I've already been blown away. This has definitely been the best experiences with manta rays I've ever had. And I've dove with mantas in Thailand, in 3 different islands in French Polynesia, which is some of the best diving in the world. And the experience here, actually, and Philippines. Yeah. I think that's it for me. But
what made it better for you?
They were incredibly close. We were in shallow water and you could just stay on the bottom and you do nothing and they'll come right up to you. They're very smart, very curious creatures. So they would just fly over our heads. I was able to see them from the top of them to the mouth coming in my face to literally brushing right over my face. And I could see every gill as they breathe in and out. It was unbelievable.
So if you guys have never seen a manta ray before, pause this and Google it, or just imagine this giant flying stingray that could be 15 feet wide?
Yeah.
So like the size of a car flying over you, and it's graceful. They kind of look like a spaceship.
Yeah, and they actually do, because the front, their eyes are very wide apart, and they have, I don't know, almost like, they're not like mouthpiece, like lip pieces that hang out in front of them as their mouth is wide open as they're kind of inhaling water to sift through animals they're eating.
And if you haven't, if you've never seen one or heard of it, and you just kind of random, like if you're the first person to ever see one, you would think it's a space alien. Like it really looks like something out of space. And I've seen them. I've been very fortunate to see in a bunch of places as well. Mm-hmm. I would say I've definitely seen more here than anywhere in the world combined. And I've had 1,000 dives now, so I've seen a lot. The first one I saw, and maybe it's because it's the first that you're kind of nostalgic, but the first time I saw it was in Koh Lanta in Thailand.
Okay. And I saw it there like 2 months ago.
And I think the reason why I preferred that was because, first, there are different breed of mantas. The ones here are reef mantas, so they're always around, which is good if you want to see them all the time.
Right.
But something about them being an oceanic manta that it's migrating, it feels like you're so lucky to have happened to see it while you're there.
Yes, that's true. I didn't think about it that way. The only place I've seen the oceanic was also Koh Lanta.
And they were way bigger, the oceanic ones.
They were much bigger. Unfortunately, for my experiences, I didn't get nearly as close. So it was almost like this mystical creature that I saw from relatively close, but still a distance, where I thought, is that real? But today and yesterday, I mean, we spent 65 minutes solely in one position while like 12 different mantas flew above us. It was just...
Yeah, I would say if you guys don't mind spending an entire season on Koh Lanta and doing like maybe 100 dives with the chance of seeing one, it might be an incredible experience.
True.
Or you can come here and pretty much be guaranteed to see them. And I think it'll blow your mind either way.
Absolutely. I just can't believe what a large animal can be so graceful. They're just more... It's like watching a bird soar is the way I would describe it. It looks like an eagle that's just circling and taking the wind, the way the wings are kind of flowing, as opposed to a dolphin is still very graceful, but definitely a lot more motion.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And it's something you guys have to experience. And unfortunately, there's less and less every year. Our seas are getting fucked from over commercial fishing and kind of unsustainable practices. And you guys have to go see it now.
Yeah.
Like,
especially... A scientist was recently here talking about, she's doing her PhD right now on mantas. So she was talking about one of the most harmful things is all the plastic that are in the water. So it's plastic that either has flown off of boats, is trash that has, most of it is from land trash. It's land trash that is getting flushed in, especially in riverways. And so these particles are so tiny by 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And so these are animals that constantly have their mouth open and they're breathing in these little pieces of plastic. I mean, I suppose most of the fish we eat from the ocean still has plastic and we're consuming it as well.
Yeah.
So
that's terrible. And Indonesia is pretty bad about having plastic on beaches. Yeah. And then in the ocean, it's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as Malaysia.
Yeah, that's true.
And which isn't saying much, but I am proud of the Indonesian kind of government or whatever, whoever the policymakers are. They seem like they're doing a very good job protecting Komodo.
Yeah, they have been. And the way the scientists described it to us, they've been really trying to educate people not just on trash, but about cleaning out the riverbeds before that trash flows into the ocean, right before the storm season, right before the wet season happens, so that, because that's where most of the trash, I think she said 80% in the water here is coming from that.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of it is things like single-use cups of water.
Yeah.
That not only is the cup plastic, but then there's like this peel-off plastic on top, and then you have a plastic straw that you have to use, and that has a plastic wrapper as well.
Yeah.
So you have 4 separate pieces of plastic just to have a single like 6-ounce serving of water.
True.
In a bottle that can't even be refilled.
True. And the straws themselves, I think, are one of the worst. They always show you how the straws can get stuck up. I've seen them stuck up of turtle noses, where they went seriously straight up the nostril into the brain.
Oh, that's so bad.
Mean, the straws are actually kind of useless. You don't really ever need a straw, I suppose.
Well, okay, so I think I saw a TED Talk from 2 Indonesian girls, young girls, who basically showed how bad the plastic was, and then begged their country and their government for change. And I think Bali has listened, because all the time I spend in Bali, especially in Ubud, but I think most of it, very little plastic is being given away used now. No plastic bags. A lot of places don't. I guess there's still plastic bottles, but one thing I did notice was most places didn't have plastic straws, which in theory is a great thing, but to be honest, was a pain in the ass, because there's some things you need a straw for, like when you drink a coconut or when you drink like a
coconut
shake or something.
Yeah. I will give you the coconut. Shared scorpion bowl is another one of those. You need the...
What's a scorpion bowl?
A gigantic, maybe 4 people can consume the alcoholic beverage. It's
like a fish bowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are times you need straws.
True.
But because they banned it, what they started doing is they started having like paper straws, which works for about 2 seconds.
Yeah,
and then
they
it starts
do not
disintegrating.
last.
And then they have glass straws, which seems like a good idea, except for like you're afraid of it breaking, number one. But the second, they have to sell these glass straw cleaners to clean the inside of it.
No, that's true. Because I've even seen the hard plastic, the ones supposedly that can go with a dishwasher, and you cannot, once you've had one smoothie in there, you cannot get everything out of the inside. You need like a special cleaning device.
So I don't think the solution is to ban plastic straws. I think what it should be is, first, if there has to be some type of biodegradable plastic. They have it for plastic bags already now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they make it. I think it's made out of cassava root flour.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that I would use it for like a day and then it would disintegrate. Mm-hmm. But I've been traveling with it and carrying stuff in it, and it's still fine. It's strong. It's like this weird, like you could feel it's not normal plastic, but it works fine. So that has to be a way. And the second thing I think they should do is I think they should implement, and I'm not a big fan of extra taxes, but I think we should tax things like cigarettes or plastics that are kind of harmful,
right?
Either to people or to the environment. So if they were to implement some kind of plastic tax for like disposable one-time use plastic products, and then use that money to fund, cleanups, either riverbed or ocean cleanups, or proper disposal, like I'd be all for that.
Yeah, no, that actually sounds like a great idea. It's amazing to me that more developing countries have started implementing no plastic bag policies, whereas already developed countries, like the States, many states still have plenty of plastic. You go grocery shopping, everything will come to you in plastic bags, and you all of a sudden have 10 a week.
That's true, but I think but at the same time, I hardly ever see like plastic bags in the US, like littered somewhere. But in Asia, especially like Malaysia, I guess Indonesia as well, that like it's like people just, I don't think they have a good waste management system. Like in the US, I don't know what they do with the plastic bags, but they somehow dispose of it, either landfill, which, maybe it's not the best thing, but it's not just going into nature, into the riverbeds. Versus in Asia, in Thailand, in Indonesia, and Malaysia, I see that stuff all over the ground, all over the forest, all over in riverbeds. It's terrible. In the water, and the beach is terrible. Well,
I think one of the main reason that is the way people view trash in those countries. Because people have viewed no littering in, say, the States for such a long time, the way I have always viewed trash is you never litter, you throw it in the rubbish bin. And in a lot of other countries, they don't view trash that way. They just dispose of it everywhere because they haven't had a good trash system to clean away their trash. And someone explained it to me that I had a banana peel, and I watched someone throw the banana peel. I'm sorry, it was a banana peel, and it's like maybe a Coke can or something, and they just threw them out the window on a moving car. It was like a public bus. And I asked about it, and they said, oh, well, the bus is clean, and this is trash, so it doesn't belong inside the bus. So they threw it outside. And I'm the opposite. I would put that trash in my car and think, oh, nature is not where the trash belongs, so I will keep it until I throw it away. So I think it's just the way people view trash. I think it will take many years. It will take generations to understand.
And I don't, I wonder what that is. If that's because, so I was on Mabul, which is the other diving resort that Scuba Junkie owns, and their beach is, spotless. It's super clean, but literally right next door is a fishing village, and it is disgusting. Like there's crap everywhere, and then there's plastic everywhere. And what had happened was, and this, it was for their entire lives, everything that they would consume would be biodegradable. It'd be wrapped in banana leaf or something. Then they would just throw it in the ground or throw it in the ocean. It wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. But then now it's cheaper for them to buy packaged noodles or, cans of Coke or, like these 2-cent candy things that are all wrapped in plastic. And they got used to just throwing it on the ground.
True. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So to me, it made sense. But then what didn't make sense to me is after 2 months or after a year and they still see it didn't degrade, wouldn't some, village elder or someone smart be like, it looks like this stuff doesn't melt or go away. Let's stop throwing it everywhere.
That's true. I mean, it could also be from our viewpoint. It's one of those, like in California, when people would ask us, oh, you live in this paradise, like, why would you want to travel? To them, it's almost like you take for granted how beautiful it is. When we see these incredible tropical islands and these vacations, we think, oh, I would pay anything to live here. A vacation here would be amazing. And to them, it's just home. So maybe they just don't value the beauty in it as much.
I can definitely see that.
Sure. Like, for them, it's home, it's their life. Yeah. And they don't know a difference in that.
But as my home, I would want it to be clean. Like, I wouldn't have trash around my home. Why would I have trash in, like, my front yard?
Yeah. No, that is true.
So, I don't know. Like, and it's one of those things where I don't know if it's our place to try to instill our values on other people.
Right.
But at the same time, maybe it is.
Yeah. I think in that piece, it definitely is, because it's not just their home, it's the entire environment. And once that trash is into the ocean, it's kind of everybody's world and everyone's home.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's nice about scuba divers or people that go underwater is we actually see what happens. And I think we make a connection to it. You know, it's like we experience it firsthand, and we want to preserve it because we want to be able to share these memories with, like, our future generations. So I think everyone should make it a point to go diving. Yeah. I like it. So how long did you save up for this trip?
Ooh, well, that's actively saving was one full year. That was active. I had already had extra savings in the bank. So I would say that in the year of active saving, that maybe paid for half the trip. Roughly about half the trip. And then the other half came from already saved money. For myself. For my fiance, he was very fortunate to work. He was a really good worker at an amazing company that gave him good stock that ended up being worth a good amount of money, a fair amount of money. So he was able to sell stock, and that's how he was able to afford his share of it.
So he wasn't saving up at all?
He did not save anything.
So did he know he was going to sell then? Like, or would he have
no,
not?
I mean, he's worked at the same company for 8 years, and every year they give him X amount of stock, and it's just because he hasn't even sold half of what they gave him in the end to cover it.
Nice. So it's cool that you had this, like, long trip planned. Did you know it was going to be for almost 2 years, or how long were you planning on traveling?
Originally, it was a one year trip. And even that is amazing. But then once we were on the 1 year trip, and it would have finished, say, this past January, it would have finished, we started talking, thinking, we already quit the jobs. We didn't ask for a sabbatical. Actually, Alex asked for 1 year, and they told him no. So he said, I'll take 2. I'll quit the job and just take it. So once we had already decided to quit the job, we thought about what adding the more trip would give us, and we thought it was worth it now that we had nothing essentially to go back to, versus trying to go back to work and then wanting to take 6 months or 8 months further down the road. And even in the 1 year, we had made a list of all the places we wanted to see. And even in the 20 months, we're not even seeing all the places. There just is so much of the world, and you're never going to see it all.
Okay, so before we jump to the places you've been, how did you prepare for this? Did you put things in storage? Did you sell things?
Yes. Our apartment we were renting, and our lease was already finished, so month to month. So that was the easiest, just give our notice. As far as all our belongings, we put it in storage, and we just pay monthly storage.
What do you guys pay a month for storage?
About $100 a month, I think. 200? 200 a month.
That's a lot.
Wow, it is a lot.
That's rent in Asia.
It's not rent in San Diego. Yeah. We had a lot of stuff. I had my car for 16 years, and I sold it for $500.
Wow, nice. What car was it?
It was a Honda Accord. They last forever.
Yeah.
Had 160,000 miles on it. And Alex, he had 2 cars. One of them he sold, and one of them he has a friend that's borrowing and just kind of maintaining till we get back. He does have an apartment that he is just renting out, but we weren't living in it anyway. It was already being rented, and he already has like a company that's taking care of that.
Okay. So. And is that cash flow positive?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So you have a source of pretty much passive income while you guys travel.
Kind of. Once you pay everything, it's not much.
Okay. So
it probably just covers the storage unit, actually, is what it... So
okay, well, that's
in
good.
that sense, it's positive.
Did you get rid of any of your furniture or stuff before you put it in storage?
No, we didn't, because this time we had recently... We didn't plan on this trip we did plan a year in advance, yes, but we hadn't planned 2 years in advance. So all of that furniture was roughly bought 2 years ago. We had moved into a great new place and we had all of the same furnishings for 10 years, say. And so we got rid of we donated all the old and had just bought all this new stuff. And we really love the stuff that we bought. So we said, we'll keep it, put it in storage.
Okay. That definitely makes sense. And I think that's kind of also a lesson for everyone is whenever you guys buy something, realize it's going to be a decision whether you either pay for storage or you can travel at all.
Yeah, that's true. And for most of the stuff we got was all secondhand on Craigslist, and it was just pieces I really loved. It was like an old whiskey barrel bar turned into a bar table and that kind of... those homey things you really love that I searched for, and they weren't necessarily expensive. I think that we're spending more in the storage unit than all of our stuff is worth. Is worth. However, to me, it was worth more. I really love this stuff. It's a lot of artwork.
Okay.
We've picked up pieces of artwork from different countries along the way, local artists, and really wanted to preserve that.
That makes sense. Did you tell how far in advance did you tell your friends that you were coming on this trip? Did they know you were saving up and planning it?
Kind of, not a full year in advance. We had already been taking every month we took a 1 week vacation or 2 weeks vacation almost before we started saving. That year we did not take vacation. But maybe 6 months before we started telling people, and they kind of were like, oh, okay, whatever. You've had your job for 8 years. Like, they didn't really believe. I think they thought, oh, they might do it, they might not. And then as the date was approaching, it was like the 2 month mark, people started believing.
Did you do anything different to be able to save more money?
Absolutely. We used to enjoy eating more meals out, not necessarily because it was more out of convenience, I think, because of our work schedule, working long hours, you get home, you don't want to cook dinner. And so it was just more convenient for us to spend the money, but we realized it was more of a waste, and we were spending so much on food, or even takeout, and really had to push ourselves to cook and make meals at home. I would say that's the largest change. Also, no real vacations, more taking advantage of living in San Diego. So we realized, we live by the beach. We have stand-up paddle boards, taking those out for the weekend instead of trying to go away on vacation somewhere.
That makes sense.
And lots of that.
Any idea what you were spending on food before, when you were going out all the time, and then after when you started cooking more?
That's a good question. It's also not just, I would say, takeout food, but also we belong to like an organic farming club that would deliver, that box was maybe $50 every 2 weeks, which is... the countries we're traveling in, $50 in organics will last you an entire month versus this was 1 week. And it wasn't our entire source of food. Probably, I would say, eating out 2 days a week, maybe even 3 days a week, averaging maybe $60. We enjoy cocktails when we're out. Before dinner, drink, an after dinner drink, maybe a glass of wine. So... between averaging 60, I would say. Maybe even 80. Yeah. 2-3 times a week.
And that adds up.
That adds up.
And okay, so how long can you eat with $80 here?
Probably a month.
Maybe not a month, but definitely like at least a week, like if not more. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's even going to restaurants. I find that in most of these countries, the groceries are more expensive than going to an actual local restaurant that's doing local food. It's all, I guess also the key is that that all of the produce you're getting, all of the meat, the fish, anything you're getting is local. They're not really importing any vegetables from another country. It's all things that are in season, so it's all organic. It's all fresh.
I don't know how much of it's organic.
You're right. That's true.
I think we like to think it is.
We like to think, well, at least it might not be organic, but it's still grown in soil.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't really believe in California. A lot of things are still grown in soil. They're doing, it's like the what is it?
Hydroponic?
Yes, exactly. And I think that takes a lot of the flavor away as it is. So we're getting better tasting food.
I mean, the food here definitely does taste different or better. I would say so much more flavor. It's going to be hard for me to go back and order like Thai food or Indonesian food back home.
True.
And then pay $15 for it.
That is true.
Per dish.
That is true. For me, living 20 minutes from Mexico, I'm incredibly hard on my Mexican food. I love Mexican. I have a lot of Mexican friends that cook for me, very authentic meals. So traveling around the world, I'm incredibly critical with Mexican, and I can find it almost anywhere in the world, but it does not taste like what I get in Southern California.
And what's really funny is when I meet like other travelers, they tell me how great a Mexican restaurant is. None of them from California.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe this is good compared to your Australian Mexican food or your Mexican food in like England or Sweden, but this is terrible.
Yeah.
I
feel the same. And I've even experienced that with friends that live in Boston when I've gone to visit friends from my original home, and I've had Mexican food, and I take one bite and say, "Oh my God, this is horrible. Mine is awful." And they're like, "Oh, really? Let me try." They'll take a bite and say, "Oh, this is what we always get. This is great." And I'm like, "Great. There is no flavoring, no seasoning, no marinade. They just grilled this and told me it was a fajitas or a taco."
Yeah, it's crazy. I was in New York a few years ago, and a friend was like, "Oh yeah, they opened this new Mexican restaurant. It's really good, and they're so excited about it." We get there, and I'm like, "This is Chipotle." And it wasn't that it tasted like Chipotle. It was literally a Chipotle. But out here in Asia, I try not to have Mexican food because I'm always disappointed, but I love Mexican food. That's the one thing I miss the most about California.
Yeah, I would say even a few times we've actually gone to the grocery in different countries, picked up the Ortega packets to make your own tacos, which is definitely not great. It will kind of do the job in that nostalgic something I did with my parents when we were little, but it's not real Mexican.
I think the biggest problem is not enough Mexican people travel.
True.
Especially like a Mexican cook or chef.
True.
And because of that, people from other countries have never actually tasted real Mexican food. Mm-hmm. It's also really hard to source the right ingredients.
Right.
And I think those two things kind of make it like almost impossible for people to make good tasting authentic Mexican food outside of California, Mexico.
That's
maybe Texas.
True. And definitely the cheese is a big factor. In many places we've seen Mexican restaurants, when we look at what they're serving, it's mozzarella cheese on their Mexican. So cheese is definitely in there.
So you stayed there for this big year. Mm-hmm. Where was your first destination?
Brazil.
Okay. Why'd you choose Brazil?
That was along the trip. Most of the time we've had a lot of freedom and flexibility with knowing kind of a path we're taking, but not having to be anywhere for a certain number of time or a certain date. But that was one date we really wanted to see Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. Okay. So we knew Carnival was about the second week of February, so we knew we had X amount of travel days a month, 5-6 weeks before that, and then we wanted to be in Rio for Carnival.
Okay. Was it worth it?
It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't everything I expected it to be. If I were to do it again, I would do it in Salvador, Brazil, which is it's on the coast, and it's their Afro-Brazilian culture, and it has amazing music. It's, all local people will be doing drumming, and it's where capoeira, the Brazilian street fighting, started. So we had been there before Carnival, and there were a group of maybe 30 female drummers marching on the streets, drumming to hand drums and singing, and people dancing, capoeira, street fighting. And I was disappointed with Rio Carnival because it definitely, the drinking was there. It was big in a party, but the music scene was not there. And I've gone to Jazz Fest in Montreal and in New Orleans. I've done even, Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and those were much more music oriented. And I was just surprised that you'd have a blocko where it would be a carnival that would parade through playing music. Once it passed, there would be hundreds, if not thousands of people just drinking in the street with no music, no sound, just drinking. And I thought I've done this in college. I could do this anywhere. I wanted more of like just a music vibe, live music, even if it was non-live, just something. The costumes for the actual party goers were also disappointing, kind of like, college, sexy Halloween, I'm going to be a bunny. But the Sambadrome was absolutely breathtaking. Sambadrome were the big parades they've practiced for an entire year, and they have music and costumes, and there was even a guy on one of those, the launcher, the water launcher where you have under your feet and it skyrockets you into the air.
Cool. Nice.
I can't remember what it's called, but there was one of those on a float, a moving float, and he was in this pool, and he was supposed to be one of the god of water. Can't remember
Poseidon.
who he is. Yes. And he would just fly up and do this performance. So it was amazing. It was like
cool.
a circus.
Okay. And so it sounds like Rio's, the bigger, more popular version, but often it's kind of finding these like traveler tips that maybe the second biggest or the second, like the second tier cities you normally more authentic.
Yeah, true.
So what was after Brazil?
Brazil into Argentina.
Okay.
And then Antarctica.
How'd you go from South America to like north?
Yes. Well, we started in Brazil and went all the way down and then came up the side. So we finished in Peru, and we decided to fly from there we flew to Egypt, Jordan, and then back down to Africa.
I'm so confused. How'd you get to Antarctica?
So we started in Brazil and traveled around Brazil into Argentina and Uruguay, and then continued going south all into Patagonia.
Oh, you know
all
what?
the way to the southern tip of Argentina, which is Ushuaia.
I just realized how bad my geography is.
You were thinking the Arctic.
North Pole.
Yeah, you were thinking the Arctic.
Okay.
And so Ushuaia is one of the biggest spots around the world. They're one of them. Another place you can go, I think, is Cape Town. I believe it's South Africa, and then maybe Australia to go if you want to go to Antarctica. So it was definitely for us. It was a huge splurge. It was above and beyond worth it. Best place I've ever been in my life.
Why?
Absolutely. Well, originally we were in Ushuaia, hadn't planned on going. The trips are cruises, about 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And they can cost you up to $15,000 per person.
That's insane, yeah.
And that's crazy money. And we were concerned that maybe we were only doing it to get that seventh. Were we doing it to get the seventh continent, or were we actually interested in seeing Antarctica? And being down there the day before we bought the ticket, we were able to get a last minute deal, which was still extremely expensive. We paid $6,000 per person.
For how long of a trip?
2 weeks.
Okay. That's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot of money, but oh my God, it was so worth it. Also, I was reluctant at first. I knew that there would be whales and seals and icebergs, but most of our trips, our best stories have to do with people we've met, like the cultural experiences. And Antarctica has no cultural experiences since no people live there. So we thought, how are we going to subsidize that part? But being on a cruise for 2 weeks with the same group of people, all adventure travelers, it takes a certain type of person.
Yeah, I think the type of people that go to Antarctica are very different.
Yes. And a lot of them were maybe older than us, but they had even more amazing experiences. People that have climbed Everest, people that we had the doctor on board had been a doctor in the Alps doing avalanche control, things like this. So he had these crazy stories of these adventure trips he had done. So the people were great. The ice was unbelievable. We saw fast moving ice. We were on a huge ship. Icebergs were amazing. We did stand up paddleboarding around the icebergs.
Wow.
So that was breathtaking. I did not. My fiance did. He was the only one. We wore dry suits.
Okay.
We did do the polar plunge. So
nice.
in a bathing suit, I jumped. It was 1 degree Celsius, which is, basically freezing. Very, very cold. They tied around me a harness in case I kind of went into shock. The minute I hit the water, I was like, it's cold, it's cold. And they kind of yanked me back onto the ship. They did have a hot tub, though, on board. Nice. So I was able to warm up.
Was the harness optional? Did people jump without it?
No, you had to have the harness, but they let you swim back if you're capable.
Oh, okay. My friend, Sam Marsh, who's the co-host of my other podcast, he did the polar plunge naked.
Yeah.
And he said it was fun to jump in, but then getting back on the dinghy, or not a dinghy, but just basically getting back onto the boat and getting pulled up by, this beautiful Russian staff member. He realized he'd just been in ice water. He's like, that was the most embarrassing moment of his life.
Yeah. Ours was pretty good, I have to say. And the water was so much colder than the air that the minute you got out, you were warm.
Wow.
You were like, wow. And I had been freezing before jumping in. But they have no pollution there at all. There's no air pollution, no pollution of any kind. So you could see for miles. My eyes it looked like a dream. Just so fake. Like nothing I'd seen.
I hate you. I just added something else to my list now.
I know.
This is what sucks.
That should be on everybody's list. I mean, we saw pods of 6 orca whales along with humpback whales, minke whales. Leopard seal was my big thing I wanted to see. They're only in Antarctica, and they can be 12 feet long.
Wow.
They're the king of all seals. They actually eat other seals for dinner.
Did you see one?
We did. We saw about 3, I think, total. And they have the body of a seal with the face of a lizard. They look very prehistoric. I mean, they're amazing.
Now, I really want to go now. I genuinely want to go now. This is insane.
You should.
Okay. All right. So you've done a lot of trips, a lot of countries. What were some of the top ones besides Antarctica that of people had to do?
Well, I think what made the places that were number one for me were because places I didn't expect much, things I didn't really know. So Nepal was one of those. We spent 3 weeks trekking the Annapurna Circuit, and I didn't really know what to expect. The scenery, being in the Himalayas, was amazing. Also, all these little villages you pass in the mountains, seeing these incredibly nice people in a very kind of old way of life still, living the same way today as they did maybe 100 years ago. Vietnam was also very, very high on my list. Vietnam had amazing beaches. They have great diving, but then they also had rice paddies, and they also have mountains you can trek in and see beautiful things. South America's always a big seller. Patagonia was fantastic. I consider myself a beach person, so I think I've been to a lot of beach destinations in my life. So the mountains are really on this trip what blew my mind, because I love warm weather. I love scuba diving, and being in all these mountain landscapes were really, really beautiful.
Talking about this, and we're literally sitting on a beach.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of hard to describe. We're basically in the lobby reception of this dive resort. It's called Scuba Junkie Komodo, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's on the island of Flores, and we are probably 20 meters away from the border of the Komodo National Park. And they picked this location because it's the closest you can be to being in the national park without being in it, because they're not allowing any new construction in there. And it's night now, but just, when we started recording this, the sun was setting. It was gorgeous. We were on a beach, some of the most beautiful landscape. And I think now, when you're talking about Antarctica and then you talk about the mountains, I'm like, I need to change. I've been to too many beaches.
Well, you can never go to too many beaches. For me on this trip, I think my favorite beach is South America and Brazil. They have an island called Ilha Grande, Grand Island, and it's very actually close to Rio, maybe 2 hours. It has a beach that is mile of white sand stretch beach. It's absolutely breathtaking. I believe it's called Lopez, maybe Beach Lopez. It's unbelievable. As far as Thailand, the Trang Islands, I thought were so unbelievable to me.
Never even heard of it.
Oh my gosh. They're kind of on the southern side, south of Koh Lanta, actually. About 2 hours from Koh Lanta. They have...
Nobody goes south of Koh Lanta.
Yeah, exactly. It's, we traveled south, and then from there, it's another 2 hours into Malaysia. So the Trang Islands were the most beautiful landscape I've ever seen for a beach, I think, maybe in my life.
Wow, okay.
To be in there. Koh Craden was the most beautiful, I think, yeah.
That's cool that you really got off the beaten path.
Yes. Well, that was, I think, the main part of our trip. People keep asking us, oh, are you going to Australia, New Zealand? And they're actually not on our list because we find them to be very easy to get to from the States. Even though I'd love to go to Australia, never been. They're just so easy for us and accessible. We wanted to go to places that are going to take you longer, and having 2 weeks vacation in the States, maybe you can do it, but some of the places we've been, if you do it that way, it will be a lot more money.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And the thing is, like, places like Australia are not that different from the US.
That's true.
I think people go because it's different, but they still speak English.
Right.
Everything's still easy. And to me, it's like, what's the point?
True. Well, I do think that most people would go there because they speak English. I think a lot of people I know that don't travel much, one of their biggest fears is not knowing a language. And while I don't think you should be naive and assume everyone in the world speaks English, the truth is a lot of people do speak English or can work with you. Even hand gestures, knowing just a few words. A lot of receptionists will know at hotels English, and that should definitely not be a deterrent in traveling. You would miss out on a lot of the world if you stayed in English-speaking countries.
Yeah, I definitely like that. So I think what you and your fiance are doing is super cool. I think it's it's a big inspiration to a lot of people. Do you have any advice to people who are at home working a job that maybe their life is decent, maybe it's good,
right,
but they secretly want some of this adventure,
right? Well, a friend of mine just emailed me asking me advice because she's in a point where she likes the job she's in, but she's not in love with it. So she's currently, and same thing with her apartment. She's renting. She likes her place, but she wants something better. So she was trying to decide whether she should look for the new job, look for the new apartment, and get something she truly, truly loves and continuing to live her great life, or if she should take a time out, quit the job, quit the apartment, do some traveling. She was actually looking into teaching English online is what she wanted to do. And I told her, do the trip.
Yep.
If she gets the good job, the good apartment, she's not going to then travel and give those up. But she can always get the good apartment she wants and the great job she wants later in life. I think people always talk about the regrets you have later in life, and traveling is on most people's list, not going someplace or not experiencing something new.
I love it. And I think every single person I've met on these travels, everyone who I've had on this podcast, they all believe the same. And I really believe that everyone listening to this, if you haven't been traveling yet, you will also feel the same once you start doing it.
Yeah. And I've never met a single person that quit their job to travel or even maybe took just a sabbatical that regretted it and said, oh, I wish I didn't travel. I wish I had just stuck with my career or job. Yeah, that's never been a thing.
And it always works out. Like, you would think that there's a lot of people that would go back and be like, oh, man, like, I couldn't find, I'm losing money now, or my house isn't as nice as it used to, my last one was, or I'm out of savings, or you would think that would happen because logically that would make sense.
Right.
I literally don't think it's ever, I've never met someone who said that.
Right. And even my fiance, he's a software programmer for a biotech company. So a lot of people had asked him, oh, aren't you so nervous taking almost 2 years out? There are going to be younger people than you, anytime when you're working with computers, it changes so quickly. And they said, aren't you concerned that you're going to be behind, that you'll need to play catch up? And he said, if I need to play catch up, I'll play catch up. That's not going to stop me from seeing the world and exploring, just because I'm concerned that I might have to do a little more work to get a job I want.
Because at the end of the day, it's worth it, right?
Absolutely.
I love it.
Always.
All right. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much.
If people want to get in touch, are you you have a blog? Do you have Twitter?
Yeah, I'm very far behind on a blog, yes. It's www.nolimitwanderlust. So WANDERLUST, nolimitwanderlust.com. And it's the same name, No Limit Wanderlust, for my Instagram account and my Facebook page. So we're kind of bad, to be honest, about putting out the blog, but we're great about every month we do our best 30 photos a month because we realize people are more interested in seeing 30 photos than everything else of ours.
I can see that. Are you going to have any photos of the mantas?
Absolutely. There will be manta pics.
And tomorrow morning, all of us are headed on a trek to actually see the Komodo dragons.
Yes, I'm very excited.
So by the time this episode comes out, you should have some photos of us with Komodos.
True.
And if not, I think I'm going to stay on this island until I get a good photo with the Komodo dragons. So
True.
I'll guarantee that.
I think you'll get one tomorrow.
We'll see. Here's crossing our fingers. So yeah, let's enjoy the rest of our trip. Good luck traveling.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
I also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor for this week. It is tripstreak.com. The next time you guys need to book a flight, either out to Komodo or to maybe Antarctica, check out tripstreak.com/travel-like-a-boss. I'll see all of you guys next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus, How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.